Hello, weekend people. I'm going to start with the Telegraph. Yeah, I'll run through these clips and then I'll have a little more at the end. Telegraph, it's an Ambrose Evans Pritchard article, and I'm just using the headline because it sums up what needs to be summed up here for me. Fear gauge enters the red zone. Europe's debt crisis risks escalating out of control. As the world economy slides towards a doubler-dipper slumper, with few shock absorbers left to limit the damage. Now, there are three things there. The European debt crisis is risking sliding out of control. The world economy is sliding towards a doubler-dipper slumper. And there are few shock absorbers left to limit the damage. Now, that just about sums up most all of the economic stuff, the big macro stuff. There's no end of other stuff that we can go into, but I think that just sums up most of what we need to know for the big macro picture. On the, what did he call it, shock absorbers, there are a few shock absorbers left to limit the damage. Over at economic data, we get leading indicators outside the Fed's control remain weak. And actually, when you look at the chart there, the leading indicators aren't weak, they're all negative. So the ones that the Fed can control are positive. All the rest are negative. And again, that's all we need to know from that. Economists' view. Tim Dewey and Fed Watch already thinking about November. You know, they've just done this 2-day meeting and done quantitative easing 3, but nobody seems to have noticed that. And already thinking about November. The ink is barely dry on the Fed's policy shift this week, but the debate is already shifting to the next move. And this from John Hillinsrath of the Wall Street Journal, who is the voice of the Fed, really, in the mainstream media, who writes, since lecturing Japanese officials in the late 1990s and early 2000s about how they should deal with their nation's economic malaise, Mr. Bernanke has made clear his mindset about post-bubble economics. Keep experimenting as long as the economy is stumbling and inflation is muted. So the economy is certainly stumbling, and we might have a little talk about inflation later. But as long as the economy is stumbling and inflation is muted, and because it isn't running out of control, is it? I mean, we all know about prices down the shops and insurance going up and this sort of thing, but it's not running out of control. So what he's saying is Bernanke will keep dabbling as long as that's like it is. But again, the main point is, can we see how all this is the real economy has gone? It's gone. And now we're just looking towards central banks and governments to do something. And that seems to be all they're doing. This is the last link I'm doing, and it's for the UK Office of National Statistical Bulletin, and it's the latest one out, August 2011. And I've just dragged this one little bit of information from it. It's a shockingly badly presented PDF. It really is bad. I mean, just as an example, in this bit that I've pulled out, they can't even get the columns right. You know, the columns there, August 2011 and 2010, should be shunted over, so they're all above each other. But the whole thing's shockingly badly presented, but that's just me moaning. Down at the bottom, net debt with a little 2 by it. The little 2 means let's just forget all about the bank stuff that we've got on our books at the moment. That's what 2 means. And if the columns were easier to read, you'd see that the 810 on the right is 2010 and the 944 is 2011. and that's the net debt. In other words, it's still bouncing up merrily. Everyone's talking about austerity in the UK and that sort of stuff, and apparently it is out there. But that's the debt that's going up for the UK, 810 to 944, which is 55% of GDP up to 61% of GDP, with a little 2 meaning without talking about the banks. Right, that's that for those, because I wanted to tell you that I think that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week was, what did I call it in the video? The day the music died. I think we have reached an end of a chapter. And because I can't find anybody now that doesn't say that, all through this year it's been, generally it's going to be a good 2011. And then it became, well, it's going to be a weak first half of 2011 because it was a weak first half of 2011, but the second half is going to be strong. And then it was going to be, well, the fourth quarter is going to be strong, but just about everyone now appreciates that 2011 isn't going to be strong, and the end of 2011 is going to be weaker than the start of 2011. So basically what we have is a world economy stalled or stalling. Let's not worry about the details. About 0%, and that's not world GDP because it doesn't matter. The big economies, let's say the United States of America, I think their accounts are similar to the UK there. They're talking about not spending extra monies, but they are spending big extra money. And that should offset quite a lot of the private deleveraging. In other words, I don't think that they will plunge too deeply down. I think so we're going to get a double dip-ish to start with by the end, the fourth quarter of 2011. But it's not going to be a plunge like it was last time. And I don't think it's going to be a plunge into 2012. It might just be a gradual process going down. But I think governments around the world, although they're talking a lot about austerity, are still spending big enough to keep the economies from plunging. They're just not going to do anything in the slightest bit impressive. And I think they're just going to slowly dive, or just, drift down might be a better way to put it. And I'll just reiterate that besides now not being able to find people that say that the end of 2011 is going to be, good and is going to save the start of it, everyone knows that it's, if not double dip, it's going to be a weak end to this year. But I can't find articles that say no in any way how the private sector, let's say, can by itself get out of this malaise. And everyone is just, I'm thoroughly bored of it, is just looking towards the central banks and governments to do something about it. I mean, that's just all it is out there. Maybe it's always been like that, I don't know. But I mean, it just seems so obvious that that's exactly what everyone's doing, just looking, come and save us. And in a way it is, I suppose. I mean, who else is going to, on a really big macro scale, save people? But it just shows, for anybody that was ever in doubt, that the whole big economy thing is completely mangled in with central banks and governments, and they're utterly unentangleable. Anyway, that's kind of the end of that. That's all I wanted to say. That I think that everyone's appreciated that now, and it's the end of that chapter of people saying it was going to be really good and we're going to get out of this and life's going to be rosy again. That's all gone, and everyone knows that it's not going to be. So I'm calling that the end of a chapter. Now, personally here, I've got Mrs. Mystic away all next week. She's having a bit of a holiday, so I'm looking after the cat. Serious job. And I've got a book I want to read. It's the Graeber book on the first 5,000 years of debt. and it's a big, is it 500 pager? Yeah. So that's going to take some time. And so I think next week I'll be doing presentations, hopefully. Never know the future, but hopefully I will. But I might look for more quirky stuff as opposed to, I think a lot of the stuff I've been doing has been building up to the acceptance of this double dip and the intractability of the problem in the Eurozone. And I think that's done, isn't it, really? So I'll look for more. I don't know what I'll look for, but it might be a slightly different slant on things next week, but we'll just have to see how it comes out. And anything else? No, I don't think so. Any of you obviously want to do postings, help yourself. If you don't think you've got I think most people know, but on the front page in, what do they call it, categories, there's a video I did about how to post on Over the Peak. That's on the front page. Scroll down the right hand side and there's categories there, and watch the video to see how to do it. And if you don't think you've got the permission, I've got to change you over to being an author, there's now a message thing down on the right hand side of the front page of Over the Peak, which comes straight to me, mystic@overthepeak.com, or just email me at mystic@overthepeak.com to get you changed to be an author. But please come and take the front page and anything you like. Anything you like. There's one particular thing that I've done a couple in. I think Linda's done one, but I thought more people would do. What did I call it? What I'd miss. I might do another of those. No, I'm going to be too busy. I'm going to be a busy little bumpkin looking after myself. But that was, I did an opera thing. Things we would miss, I would miss, you would miss, if civilization did close down. You know, there might be simple things like 500-page books coming in from Amazon that you can read. Because I think the world is going to change an awful lot. And there's that. But anything you fancy at all, really. It doesn't have to be economy or peak oil or peak debt or anything. Anything you fancy that you think might entertain the troops, go for it. Over the Peak is as much yours as it is mine. Okay? We're in this together. So I'll see you next week. Bye.